Hello, everybody. It's Mr. Seymour, and this is our first mini lesson. So I'm going to really record very quickly a quick video, and then we'll have a few questions along the way. This particular video is going to cover the topic of cultural diffusion. So let's start by asking, what do all of these things have in common? What do they have in common? Can you think of some things? On the next slide, I will go on ahead and stop and ask you to type in some things that you see that they have in common. Look at the Levi Strauss jeans, at the chopsticks, at the anime or manga picture up in the upper left, and then we have spaghetti, and we have the McDonald's logo. So what do these have in common? The topic of this particular lesson is cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion is the transfer or movement of cultural pieces from one culture to another. And you can think of all the products and the languages across the world that exist and how they got there. The same applies to religion. It applies to a lot of different things. So we have, for instance, in the lower left-hand corner of this screen, sushi. And we have Coca-Cola in Chinese. And we have the different ways to say welcome in different languages. And then we have different foods. So think of how all of these things impact from one society to another, or from one geographic place to another. Did you know that the origins of chocolate can be traced as early as the Olmec in 1500 BC as what was believed to be a ceremonial drink from the cacao bean, or cocoa? The Mayans used chocolate for celebrations and for financial transactions, so this was worth money to them. The Aztecs used the cacao as currency, even more valuable than gold. And it was mostly agreed that Spain first obtained chocolate in the 1500s from the Americas as part of what we are going to define as the Colombian Exchange. So the rest of Europe followed, and they got a taste for chocolate. And something else that came along with chocolate, which really wasn't part of the origins of chocolate back in the days of the Olmec and the Aztec, which is sugar. They got a sweet tooth for it. So how does cultural diffusion occur? Cultural diffusion can occur through a variety of different ways. For instance, war, trade, like the Colombian Exchange, Silk Road, and migration. Many of these interactions can bring changes to the local population as they discover new products or techniques, as they get exposed. For example, agriculture, the potato, the tomato, all of those come from the New World and they're brought back to Europe. Technology, like the wheel, the cotton gin, and so forth. Don't forget guns as a technology, because the gun is introduced from the old world to the new world. Governments, democracy, the republic, the idea of self-governance. A historical example is that of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was someone who actually didn't even come from Greece, but he brought Greek culture everywhere he went along the way. Under Alexander the Great, the Greeks were able to expand their regions, their culture to regions all over the world. especially Asia and Africa. And this expansion of Hellenistic or Greek culture led to the regions having access to a common language, Greek, allowing for cultural diffusion to occur. So you see the movement of art, sculpture, intellectual ideas, all kinds of different new technologies are going to be spread all over the world wherever Alexander went. So he starts over here in the Mediterranean and moves all the way up here into Asia. Let me see if I can show you that. Looking for my pointer and I don't see it. Okay. Let's take another really good example, and that is G.I. Joe. The G.I. Joe that I knew was over here. G.I. Joe started out as this action figure of a soldier from World War II and Korea. G.I. Joe action soldier. He was about the size of Barbie, and he came with a foot locker, a green foot locker, and he came with his little, over here, his dog tags. So he was more like, kind of like a boy's version of Barbie. There I am. And then he gets changed. In Japan, all of a sudden, this idea of G.I. Joe gets changed into a new version of G.I. Joe. And he shrank. I don't know why he shrank, but he shrank. The Japanese pick up on the idea of an action toy or an action hero, and they turned it into what we know as Transformers. Well, actually, before Transformers, because Transformers happen in the United States. They get converted back from these figures that you could see in Japan to what we know as the Transformer in the 80s. So Transformers are toys that are the most explicit example going through cultural diffusion. Each image up here around the screen shows how it changed from the United States version to a Japanese version back to a United States version that we know as Transformers. In the Americas, the exchange of products, of animals, agriculture, and even diseases and technologies is what we call the Colombian Exchange. And these are impactful exchanges, and we're going to really discover these a little later down the line in this unit. It provides many exchanges of goods and services between what we know as the New World, North America, and the Old World, Europe. Some things come from Europe and they move to North America, and then some things come from North America and move to Europe. So for instance, germs, syphilis as an example, smallpox are diseases that the natives in North America were not exposed to. So once they became exposed to them, they died a lot of times. The grape, cows, horses, bananas, the bee, citrus fruits, all of these are brought to the Americas from Europe and Asia. Now, from the Americas, we get things like the pumpkin, the turkey, the sweet potato, a pineapple, peppers, tomatoes, corn. Those are all brought to Europe from North America. So that's the Colombian Exchange. And there's a really excellent book written by a guy named Jared Diamond. You can check it out sometime. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And Jared Diamond said everything about our modern history comes back to those three things: guns, germs, and steel. And they're all things that were exchanged between the New World and the Old World, and the Old World back to the New World. Guns, technology; germs, I don't have to tell you what that is; and steel, that is production and technologies. So the idea of making things and producing things, that all comes down to what he called steel. But the natural resources for that came from the New World to the Old World. All right. I want to thank you for watching. Please remember to keep up with your readings. You can contact your teacher, me, by emailing directly from your course. My email is jseymour@tvahallsville.org, and my phone number for right now is 915-257-8435. So have a great afternoon, or evening, or morning, or whatever it is.